Imagine a village where the cooking fires are still warm, yet every living thing, from the cattle in the fields to the families in their beds, is dead. There was no struggle, no screams, and no visible wounds. Just an absolute, terrifying silence that first responders could only describe as the aftermath of a neutron bomb. On a single August night in 1986, a silent assailant rose from the depths of a sapphire-blue lake in Cameroon to claim 1,700 lives in a matter of minutes. This is the mystery of Lake Nyos, the lake that learned how to breathe death, and the warning it still holds for millions of people today. The evening of August 21st, 1986, in the highlands of northwestern Cameroon, began with a silence so profound it felt heavy. In the villages of Nyos, Subum, and Cha, the day's work was done. Families gathered around cooking fires, the scent of plantains and maize filling the air, while the Fulani herdsmen settled their cattle for the night. Above them sat Lake Nyos, a sapphire jewel cradled in the throat of an ancient volcanic crater. To the locals, it was known as the Bad Lake, a place of legends and spirits. But on this night, its surface was a perfect deceptive mirror for the half-moon hanging in the sky. At approximately 9 p.m., the highlands' stillness was shattered. It began with a low-frequency rumbling, a sound some described as a distant rock slide, while others heard what sounded like the shouting of many voices. On the lake's surface, the water began to froth and churn. Suddenly, a massive jet of water and spray shot hundreds of feet into the air, creating a surge that washed over the shores and flattened the surrounding raffia forests. From the depths, a ghostly white mist began to rise. It didn't drift upward toward the clouds. Instead, it clung to the surface of the water, thick and heavy. This was the birth of an invisible executioner. The mist was almost pure carbon dioxide, CO2. And because it was 1.5 times heavier than the air, it behaved like a fluid, spilling over the crater's rim and cascading down into the valleys at speeds of up to 50 kilometers per hour. It was a silent, odorless tide of death. In the village of Nyos, just below the crater, the impact was instantaneous. As the cloud, nearly 50 meters thick, rolled through the settlement, it displaced every molecule of oxygen. Cooking fires were extinguished in a heartbeat as the gas deprived them of combustion. In those same heartbeats, the villagers lost consciousness. There was no struggle, no scream, just a sudden, terminal sleep. For the few who survived on the higher slopes, the morning of August 22nd brought a horror that defies human comprehension. Ephraim Che, a farmer living on a cliff above the lake, woke up feeling ill. When he looked down at the lake, he saw that the crystal blue water had turned a haunting, rusty red. He descended toward the village, only to be met by a scene that looked like the end of the world. He found a woman named Souley, wandering naked and screaming in a state of absolute madness. She was frantically shaking her lifeless father, trying to wake him. Around her lay the bodies of 31 family members and their entire herd of 400 cattle. Further down, in the village of Subum, Joseph Nkwane's experience provided a clinical window into the nightmare. He awoke late the next morning, confused and unable to speak. His breath wouldn't come. He heard his daughter snoring in a terrible, abnormal way, a sound of severe respiratory distress, but before he could reach her, he collapsed again. When he finally regained consciousness for a second time, his daughter was dead. He attempted to flee on his motorcycle, passing friends and neighbors who looked like they had simply frozen in time. He saw a man still sitting astride a motorcycle that had stalled, killed where he sat because the gas had suffocated the engine's internal combustion before it took the man's life. When military responders and international journalists finally reached the impact zone 36 hours later, they were met by a silence so absolute it was terrifying. There was no buzzing of flies, no chirping of birds, no rustle of insects. The usual morning chorus of the tropical rainforest had been erased. The neutron bomb comparison became the standard description for the scene. Everything was physically intact. The houses, the trees, the tools, but every living thing was gone. In total, 1,746 people and over 3,500 livestock had been wiped off the face of the earth in a single night. The physical state of the survivors added another layer of mystery. Many were covered in large red blisters and lesions. Initial reports sparked fears of chemical warfare or volcanic burns, leading to rumors that the disaster was actually a secret test of a nuclear device or a biological weapon, perhaps by foreign governments in collaboration with local authorities. However, forensic investigations by a multidisciplinary team from the US Department of State revealed a more mundane, but no less tragic cause. These were not burns, but pressure sores, bullae caused by victims lying in a deep CO2-induced coma for up to 36 hours without moving, causing the skin to break down from a lack of circulation. As the world watched, a fierce scientific debate erupted between some of the greatest minds in geology. Harun Tazieff, a legendary French volcanologist, argued for the volcanic hypothesis. He believed the disaster was a gas blast, a sudden hot eruption where magma hit a pocket of water beneath the lake bed. Opposing him was George Kling and his team, who proposed the limnic hypothesis. They argued the lake was like a giant bottle of champagne. For centuries, CO2 from a magma chamber miles below had been percolating into the cold, high-pressure bottom waters, becoming trapped there in a state of supersaturation. Something, a minor landslide, a tremor, or even an unusually cold rain, had popped the cork, causing the gas to rapidly come out of solution and the entire lake to overturn. Kling's theory eventually won out. Isotopic analysis of the carbon and helium in the water proved the gas was magmatic in origin, but had been stored in the lake for decades. The iron that turned the lake red was found to be the result of deep water minerals being dredged up and oxidizing upon contact with the air.